Abolitionists Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott decided to hold the first convention for women's rights. They met in Seneca Falls, New York, and were joined by a large group of abolitionists, predominantly women. They passed a set of resolutions they called the Declaration of Sentiments. These resolutions included gender inequities they felt needed to be addressed, including the women's right to participate in the election process. The Civil War disrupted the women's rights campaigns. In the aftermath, the 14th Constitutional Amendment defined citizens as male, and the 15th Amendment extended the right to vote to black males. These amendments caused division in the women's suffrage movement. Some women supported the changes as progress, while others opposed the amendments, angry that women were still not included in the language. In 1869, the then Territory of Wyoming passed the first women's suffrage law, allowing women to vote. Susan B. Anthony was arrested at her home, along with more than a dozen other women. They were arrested for voting in the presidential election and fined $100. The division caused by the 14th and 15th Amendment is mended, and one group, the National American Women's Suffrage Association, is founded. A group of women, including Mary Church Terrell, Frances E. W. Harper, Harriet Tubman, and Ida B. Wells Barnett, held a conference that resulted in the formation of the National Association of Colored Women Clubs to advocate for equal access for black women. Even though the women's suffrage movement was birthed in part from the mutual goal of abolition, the suffragists continued to discriminate against black women, even barring them from attending women's conventions. The NACWC works even today on issues that pertain to the special interests of black women. Suffragist movement continued to grow in the West, and women like Maria Guadalupe Evangelina de Lopez were crucial in translating the suffrage information for Mexican American citizens. Her efforts paid off in her home state of California. Women like Alice Paul and Lucy Burns felt that the women's rights movement was progressing too slowly. They organized a protest march and parade in 1913 in Washington, D.C. on the day of Woodrow Wilson's inauguration. Thousands of women joined the parade and were led by a beautiful woman on a white horse, whose image was meant to combat the stereotype that all suffragists were old spinsters. The participants were not treated well by the crowd. They were spit on, slapped, tripped, and jeered. Things continued to improve for women in the West. In fact, Jeanette Rankin became the first woman elected to Congress in 1916, representing Montana. She was serving in a government where women in 39 of the then 48 states still could not vote. Women began to be arrested and jailed for peacefully protesting. Once there, they were often mistreated, kept in unsafe conditions, and given rotten food and filthy water. In an event that came to be known as the Night of Terror, a group of these protesters were even tortured. Stories of this sort of treatment helped spread sympathy for the cause. In 1919, the 19th Amendment was finally passed, giving women the right to vote. The Silent Sentinels were a group of women who campaigned for the right to vote by picketing outside the White House for more than 10 months during 1917. They wore sashes of purple, white, and gold and held signs with slogans. Tune in next Saturday to learn how to make your own no-sew suffragist sash.